So I started the recording. And why this topic? Well, it's kind of hard to ignore. The world is becoming more data-driven, isn't it? You know, there's more real-time data available through the IT systems that we use, but also through physical goods and infrastructure that we use. You know, Internet of Things and devices are increasingly connected to the internet. So we have lots and lots of data and information that can help us. And that presents opportunities for organisations to become more efficient, react to customer demand more quickly, and reduce costs ultimately. And of course, that's true for our organisations, but it's also true for our supply chains as well. And I know that all of our organisations will be on a journey of some kind. So some of us will be at the beginning of that kind of journey in automation and digitisation, and some of us might be more advanced. But really the purpose of the session today is we're going to hear from our two subject matter experts on this, to talk us through the world of digitisation, automation within supply chain. And the first person you're going to hear from is Nnamdi Ahuchugu. Nnamdi works for Zurich Resilience Solutions, and he's a supply chain risk expert, working with our customers on supply chain risk issues and supply chain management. So Nnamdi's been with us for less than a year, but it does have 20 years of experience in the industry as a supply chain and procurement professional. So you get first-hand knowledge and experience of the topics that we're talking about today. And the second person you'll hear from is Luca Busani. Luca is one of our senior marine risk engineers, and he's got over 15 years experience working in marine insurance and risk management. And Luca's role with Zurich is to work with our customers to improve business resilience. So things like understanding, assessing, mitigating risk within the supply chain. So that covers things like security, building resilience within complex transport operations and that sort of thing. So both Nnamdi and Luca are very well qualified to lead us through the discussion today, and I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say. So I'll hand over to Nnamdi.
Thank you very much, Alan, for that introduction, and good day to everybody on the call, and welcome to the second in our series of supply chain webinars. The first was on ethical and sustainable procurement and supply chains last week. If you were not fortunate to be at that event, we can make that recording available to you as well. For those of you that were now the first session as well, just to give you a little bit more about my role and responsibility within Zurich Resilience Solutions. So as Alan mentioned, I recently joined the team, and I have worked with the team to develop a proposition of supply chain risk management services for our clients and customers. So jumping into today's topic. So today's topic is purely around digitization and automation of the supply chain. As Alan mentioned in his beginning statement, the world as we know it today, everything is moving towards digitization in one way, shape, or form. I think one of the first things that I'd like to do as part of this series as well, as part of this webinar, is to look at what the definition of digitization and the term digitalization. I think those two terms are used quite often within industry, but it'd be important if we can just give our thoughts. If you could just put your answers in the chat room. If you can just give your thoughts around what you think or what you understand digitization means, and what you also think digitalization means as well. So we'll take a couple of minutes if we can just get some answers from people on the forum. If you just put your answers in the chat, we'll take them out, and then we can discuss in some level of detail. Yeah, indeed, Alan. A lot of people do think they're the same, but there's a slight difference, which we'll go into on the next slide. Does anybody have any thoughts, guess of what the definitions may be? Okay. There's a lack of response from the audience, but we'll go into the definition. So before I move on to the next slide, I'll just give you the broad definitions around digitalization and digitization. So I'll start with digitization. So digitization is the conversion of analog or physical information into a digital format. Sometimes the term digitization is also known as digital transformation. I'll try and give a sort of a real life example of that. So if you think about a paper manual within a manufacturing environment or an organization, that paper manual, you take that paper manual and you effectively turn it into a digital format, and it becomes available online to read on a computer or a tablet. That's a form of digitization. If you think about the newspaper industry, so take the Financial Times, for example, or the Sun, or Daily Mirror, whatever publication is one of your choice. Each of those publications now provide the newspapers in a digital format. So rather than having a physical paper format, you can read it online. So that's effectively is a broad definition of the term digitization. Now, when we talk about digitalization, now digitalization is the use of digital technologies to enable or improve a business. So again, looking at another example, if say you had a mechanic that was working on a car, and the mechanic had digitally enabled glasses, and he was able to project his work instructions for how to fix that car onto his glasses, and effectively doesn't need to refer to a manual, then he effectively is improving or enhancing his way of working by not having to physically refer to a manual. Um, Another broad example is if we take the newspaper example again, if we think about the Financial Times, they have enhanced so they have an online offering where you can read the newspapers online. But in addition to that, they also use digital technologies such as videos, podcasts, virtual reality streams, to enhance their digital portfolio, to effectively be able to reach more of their audience or provide them their information in a different format. So that in itself is the definition of digitalization. But for the purpose of this webinar, we are looking at digitization and or digital transformation, as it's known as, and its use in the context of the supply chain. So supply chain digitization or digital transformation is the process of turning analog supply chain processes into digital ones by establishing dedicated master data that aggregates information from across your entire supply chain. So you think about different aspects of the supply chain, and different arms of the supply chain. So you think about your sales side of the supply chain, who are providing sales data, potentially through an ERP system, which then goes into a production system within your organization. And then that production system looks at the sales requirement, blows it up into a bill of materials, which then goes into a demand planning process through procurement teams, who then through technology may be able to provide demand signals or requirements to their suppliers through something called an electronic data interchange that goes to the supply base, and the supply base then effectively acts on that requirement, and the supplier product then starts to flow all the way backwards within that supply chain, till it gets to the point where the customer requirement is satisfied. Now, when we talk about how we can achieve supply chain digitization, there's only really one way of doing it, and that's primarily with software. And it's either you go and buy that software off the shelf, or you develop something in-house to effectively use that process to enable your supply chain within the organization. And I personally have worked in organizations where ERP systems and ERP software has been either purchased or it's either been built in-house, and both. There really is no right or wrong way to do it within the organization. Every organization is different, and it's what gives you the best efficiency, the best form of revenue that effectively will work for your organization. Now we'll start to, before we move on to talking about the advantages of supply chain digitization, I just wanted to point out that there's 4 core things that is required for a digitized supply chain. I think for it to work effectively within your organizations, one of the major things is required is a cultural change within the organization. So it's effectively giving people the opportunity to embrace that new technology and new ways of working, and being comfortable with the way they apply the new technologies and the new ways of working. Sometimes it could be daunting, moving to digital systems, having always been used to using a manual system, but it effectively involves a huge cultural change within the organization, because if you implement it without that cultural change, then a lot of people will be resistant to the change and may not have the capability or the ability to embrace and pick up that change. Another thing that's required for digitization as well is modern solutions. So moving away from old systems of data storage, for example, everything's now done cloud-based in terms of data storage. I know there are concerns around the security of cloud-based systems, but the technology in itself has come forward in leaps and bounds, and it's at that point where a lot of organizations, in fact, most organizations now store their data on a cloud platform, effectively defining that as the modern solution and the modern way of data storage. A key aspect of digitization as well is innovation. So when I say innovation, it is about looking at incorporating digital solutions into your offerings as a business as well. Some form of digital platform or digital enabler within that level of innovation within your organization, because this is the future. The future is digitization, and we can see it more and more creeping into our daily lives on a day-to-day basis. And the last thing that's required for a digitization platform is transformation as well. So again, I talked about digital technologies previously, and it's about using these digital technologies and using them to transform your business, to provide enhanced revenue and increased profits for your business. And again, it's not about embracing every form of digital technology out there. You need to analyze your business, you need to assess your business, and you need to pick that solution that's right for your business and that's correct, and will enhance your business. And it's not just putting something in place just for the sake of it. Otherwise, it'll be costly and it'll be extremely detrimental to your business. So moving on to the next slide, we'll start to look at the advantages of a digital supply chain. So believe it or not, a digitized supply chain will enhance your cash flow. Now, a lot of people may think, conversely to this, that it is an expensive system to put in place, to have implemented within your supply chain, which is absolutely true. It is an expensive system to put in some cases, depending on how much you embrace a digital supply chain. However, if you don't do anything, the costs and the impact on your business will even be greater. There's a lot of studies that have been done that says that on average, the cost to businesses of manually entering data into their ERP systems, or even just manually raising an invoice or processing an invoice manually for a supplier, it goes into the millions of pounds in terms of costs to a business. So if you think about the investment, there needs to be a payback period for that investment that you put into digitization within your supply chain. But you have to do that analysis for your business. It needs to be cost effective. You need to have a payback period where you make the investment into digitization, but ultimately you pay out initially, but ultimately you get cost savings back due to the efficiency you gain from having that in place. Opportunities for automation. So reducing manual tasks minimizes the burden of administrative work on your teams, and it frees them up for other tasks that may have gone unattended. So you think about how much time your team will save from having their processes automated. So that using that time, so having automation in place doesn't necessarily mean that you have to get rid of the people within your organizations that do the work. It just means that you can deploy them to different areas to, again, improve the efficiency within your organization. I'm sure there's lots of people that talk about the inability to complete tasks within a timely manner. But this is where automation comes into its own, and it helps to free up that space and free up and give that capacity to individuals to create a bit more efficiency within the teams. Automation also gives the benefit of reducing human error, which again means that you can give back lost revenue lost from fixing those errors. And also automation means speed. It can speed up the processes. Again, I go back to the discussion around invoicing of suppliers. Automated invoicing means that you can effectively pay your suppliers quicker. Then we talk about the increased transparency and improvement of customer satisfaction. Again, with digitization and automation, it brings a level of visibility all the way through your supply chain, and it also means that you can collaborate better with your supply base, and ultimately, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is that we're trying to satisfy a customer and improve that customer satisfaction. So using digitization within the supply chain provides that visibility, provides your businesses the ability to delight your customers and give them an improved service. And then keeping things cohesive and connected. So just thinking about this, a lot of organizations use spreadsheets and email threads to get information that they require for their day-to-day businesses. I think a lot of you find it difficult to understand this, but I think if there's still a heavy reliance on spreadsheets and email threads to get this information, a lot of organizations are going to get left behind relatively soon, because the immense time and effort that's spent on these tasks, again, like I said, hurts efficiency, and it leaves more room for human error. So digitizing your supply chain creates the opportunities for connecting disparate systems, enabling communication across the entire organization, and creating a single source of information. Because we all know that once we start to get multiple sources of the same sort of information, we start to breed distortion, and distortion within the supply chain starts to breed disruption. So having one system that's connected, cohesive, digitized gives the supply chain the opportunity to be more efficient. And then this is one that I've talked about before in the past. I think I talked about it briefly in the previous webinar. It's about leveraging the data that we have around us to make decisions. And this is what a digital supply chain will give your organization. So, for example, in transportation and the logistics industry, decisions need to be made very, very quickly, and agility is vital. There's no time to sort of dilly-dally and ponder over information that you have in front of you. You have to be very, very flexible and agile in the way you make your decisions, and a digital supply chain gives your organization the ability to be able to do that. A digitized supply chain allows you to gather and analyze massive amounts of data. There's lots of companies out there that have, for example, used various different systems in the past. So they've, in one hand, developed an SAP system that they've used to run their business. They may have previously in the past relied on an Oracle-based system, and then at some point in time, they end up running both systems. And if you've worked in industry before, you know that an SAP system never interacts appropriately with an Oracle system. So you get into a situation where you have a disparity in the amount of data that you have around you. So the advantage of a digital supply chain is that you start to look at leveraging this data and having all this data in one place, and starting to transform this data into a form that makes sense to your business, and a form that allows your business to make the right decisions, and with the ultimate goal of improving customer experience, boosting sales, and ultimately reducing any waste that you have along your supply chain. Now, having said all of that, I will now pass on to my colleague, Luca, who will then now take you through some of the drivers of supply chain transformation.
Yeah. Thanks, Namdi. Okay. Should we put it in present? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So what I'm going to talk a bit of what is behind the drive toward digitalization, and how digital tool can support the risk management practitioners. So what solutions are out there, and how can they solve this in how can they help in solving sort of like a supply chain risk and problems. And just a few words about myself. Again, I'm the risk engineer for marine, and I also collaborate with Namdi on supply chain, and I spend most of my time helping customers in project logistics, so working with long lead oversized cargo, shipment of pharmaceutical cold chain logistic, and the security storage of transportation of high value and theft attractive assets. So I think over the last 2 years, the drive to transform the supply chain has accelerated, and change focus to a certain degree. I think obviously the events such as the pandemic have acted as a catalyst, as driving change, and the frequency and the severity of recent disruptions have encouraged many organizations to rethink, I think, their approach to supply chain risk. There has been a shift for looking to lean, to establish lean and efficient supply chain, with the change focus more on the need for resilience, sustainability, and technology maturity. And leading companies also have realized that the digital transformation of the supply chain can augment resilience, and are now building a more proactive risk management system with a focus on digital tools that and well-rehearsed mitigation strategies. So there is like this need to be more proactive for this and prepare for disruption, rather than continuously dealing with exception management and firefighting, and every day to send out urgent emails or picking up the phone, sort of like to solve each day different problems, such as delays with supplies, customer not be satisfied, stock locked within the port of origin, etc. There is there are some, of course, these are, I think, we are some of the drivers that are pushing in this direction. One is for sure the need to monitor, have increased visibility, and monitor events in real time, and the capacity of taking corrective actions as needed. Just perhaps it would be easier to understand. So if giving an example, if we can imagine a company that has to reorder some critical spare parts, they traditionally they would wait for to meet the reorder level within their inventory system, that they would produce a purchase order. And if this order is delayed, they would know perhaps once the container is at sea, or they would be, even worse, they may be advised by their freight forwarders a couple of days before. So in this time frame, there is not much they can do really. Like, whereas if you can imagine, on the contrary, like if there was like a supply chain event management system in place, perhaps there could even be some joint vendor management inventory. So for instance, like once the reorder level is met, the supplier would immediately start producing what is necessary. But again, like if there was a problem or a delay, so that would be notified like at the production planning phase, and there would be ample time like for the company to take corrective action. For instance, they may decide to expedite the order by looking at air transportation or other solutions that may fit their case. There is also like this increased need to access information outside the four walls of the warehouse or the manufacturing facility. So we think like supply chain as there are three dimensions of supply chain risks, as this risk may be triggered within the organization. It may be, for instance, just a case of inventory or forecasting or quality issues. There may be risk that originate within the network of supplier, maybe the failure of supplier of a 3PL that deliver the product to our customer, or they may originate also outside of the organization. There may be, for instance, like a geopolitical or weather event, regulation or market dynamic that may affect the supplier market. So there is the need to monitor the external environment and have a visibility of this entire end-to-end ecosystem. Other drivers, of course, like us, again, like the necessity to keep an eye on what is real product demand, as opposed to working with forecasting. And again, like so we have to balance this requirement of on the one side having extended supply chain and working with increased customer requirements and longer lead time, but on the same time, perhaps more increased volatility of demand and shock in supply that make necessary for the companies and organization to act quickly. So, moving to the next slide. This is just really a simplified, very simplified example of what data analytic architecture may look like. So if we have, of course, as we know, an overabundance of data that is collected from several different sources across the supply chain, maybe your enterprise resource planning system, RFID, barcoding, electronic point of sale, transport management system, warehouse management system. So again, like so, and if this is not new, like this overabundance of data has been there for quite some time. Perhaps I think the difference now is we can do something about it since there are like some enablers that came around. In particular, I'm thinking about machine learning and cloud technology. But so I think the quite a fundamental question is, so what type of data is available and how we extract it and process, how we can use it, how it is stored, and what are especially the business challenges we are trying to solve. For instance, like, do we want to improve product quality? Do we have like some service level issues that we want to solve? And what impact is going to also to have on our organization? Is going to, for instance, like to allow us to have more agility in reacting to market changes? Is going to make our organization more recession proofs? And we can also like identify three different level of business analytics in based on what they can do and they can achieve. So I think at the most basic level, like we have the most common descriptive sort of level where we are working with a dashboard with ad hoc reporting and queries capability, which are good to understand what happened and what it has happened historically, however, they cannot help us much in understanding what could happen or what we could do about it. Like the next level would be like predictive analytics, so that working with statistical and stochastic method can help us in understanding what it can happen along our supply chain. Example, for instance, could be like for instance like the forecasting that is used by a credit rating, where the credit worthiness can be calculated of a company, of an individual, can be established sort of like guesswork using these tools. Predictive logistics, for instance, is another example where we can have prediction can be run, for instance, on the situations such as late or off-schedule shipments, or I've been recently talking, for instance, like with a company where they are trying to implement also predictive analytics in the realm of vessel behavior. So, for instance, looking at where they are, what are the navigational areas, the behavior, and overlaying with the data such as weather patterns, areas as a risk of piracy, congestion, etc. So the risk of operating those vessels can be calculated and assessed. And also we have like perhaps at the highest level predictive analytic, where the aim is to provide a solution and optimizing decision. Especially we are looking at what if scenario simulations can help understand what could be perhaps the impact, the downstream impact of a failure of a supplier or a particular node or link within the supply chain, or what, for instance, like can help also in taking decision what could be, for instance, the best time for launching a particular product, or for what may be the best shipping strategy, perhaps if you're looking at the different modalities of transportation, of if we want to reconfigure our distribution center. These are some example of, again, like there are a lot of technology solutions out there, and this is an example of some of we think like being more successfully adopted within the logistic and supply chain industry. These are some of the business challenges and the problems that may help to solve. Like one I think, as mentioned, is big data analytics. So in the sense of speeding up response times to potential supply disruptions or product deviations. Keeping, for instance, service level requires monitoring product plans, level of inventories, and they can be very useful, especially if they enhance intervention capabilities for the supply chain participants, if tolerance boundaries may be integrated into the system. Another, I think, very areas with a lot of potential is sensor technology, which can, for instance, is adopted like for condition monitoring, preventing maintenance within a manufacturing environment. They can help in, for instance, in the make failure-proof the critical equipment and processes. Also, reduce unplanned downtime and product quality. Also, in my industry, for instance, the marine, this is being adopted as well, like for predicting what are the chances of machinery failures, and when is the best time as well, like for taking some corrective action in terms of maintenance. Artificial intelligence, of course, although is something that is being along for a long time now, is being in recent years that a bit sort of acceleration in its adoption within the supply chain industry. This is particularly because to respond to the need of monitoring risks, which are dynamic, changing, not static. So, for instance, like they can help in understanding how the risk landscape is evolving. They can provide scanning sort of like different sources of structured and unstructured data, monitor, for instance, the status of critical supplier, the status of critical supplier on markets, and provide alerts if there is any event that could impact the supply chain. Maybe, for instance, like a fire on a big manufacturing facility, or downstream, or it could be for instance, like as an example, like withdrawal of capacity from the transportation capacity from the market, and help organization react to these changes and be proactive. And like also like another application again, like is very important, I think, is simulation. Nambi mentioned before the adoption of, for instance, like automation and robotics within the logistic industry. Again, this digital modeling and simulation combined with risk assessment can help assess, for instance, like in a safe and environment, what are the operational alternatives, and without experimenting on customers, and accelerate the time of the market of the solution with reduced cost and risks. And so sort of like we're looking now at again, a simplified example of a transformation roadmap. We think again, like we have there are a lot of digital solutions out there, and there is a lot of hype out there, but I think we think a good way to start would be looking, as opposed to starting from the technology we want to adopt, like perhaps what is the problem we want to solve, what type of so for instance, what type of data do we have available, what also like is what are perhaps there may be within the organization like some other non-digital operational changes that are taking place. Perhaps can they be again married together, like with this digital solution that we want to adopt. Another point I think to keep in mind is being aware of the operational reality and how to integrate sort of like tools and technology within the workflow process. For instance, just to give an example from my personal experience, like we have a lot of discussion when we look at tracking and monitoring high value assets about the use of GPS. So it's very good to have the GPS infrastructure and the control monitoring center, but for instance, if you don't have that also operational capabilities of, for instance, like if having a prompt alert and deployment law enforcement agency within a reasonable time, there is really little use in having this form of tracking for security purposes. Because if you can imagine, like if, for instance, there is a monitoring station in the UK and a vehicle with some valuable assets traveling in Eastern Europe. So do we have, first of all, the capability geofencing to be alerted within minutes if there is perhaps if this vehicle is deviated from its route or is doing something it's not supposed to do? And do we have the capability of alerting the local police and direct them to the scene of the crime? Again, like other sort of like points to be keep in mind is like as Namdi mentioned before again. So what is going to be the buy-in from internal stakeholder within the organization? So is there going to be enough management support, and what are the gaps in knowledge within the organization that needs to be closed for adopting these solutions for technology adoptions? And what also like again, like there is this need to engage as well with the external suppliers. So if you want to integrate him like in adopting like in some joint platforms, so are they right partners for us? What are the digital capabilities and for starting the journey? Okay, I'm going to hand over now to Namdi again.
Okay, thank you very much for that insight, Luca. Very much appreciated. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a poll now with the participants on the call. Now, what we want to try and do is we want to try and see if you can help us ascertain what stage of digital maturity do you believe your organization is currently at? Now, I'll give you the definitions of the three options that we have. So when we say digitally active, so we mean that your organization uses digital solutions to carry out some level of transactions, but very basic level analytics is carried out. There is some form of operational improvements as well from a digital perspective. And then you also do a level of measurement of KPIs and metrics. So that's the active box. And then engaged is where your organization has an advanced level of analytics and solutions within and digital solutions within your organizations. It's digitization is being implemented within processes, and this has been rolled out across the organization as well. And there's a fair degree of automation of some of the processes you have within your organization. And then the last box, the digitally mature, kind of does what everything else, every other aspect does. But I think the main differentiator with a digitally mature environment is the implementation of artificial intelligence solutions and machine learning. So when you are at that stage, we believe that there's a high degree of digital maturity. So if we could just take a couple of minutes based on those definitions, and if you need the definitions again, please let me know. I'll give them to you again. But if we can just put a vote out there as to where we think our organizations currently sit in terms of digital maturity. I have no way of knowing when the polls are coming in, but I'll have a look. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so we've got about 88% are saying digitally engaged, Namdi, and 13 are digitally active.
Okay, fantastic.
But no 0% are mature, which, yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you. So I think based on the number of people on the call and based on the spread of responses and answers, it's not really a surprise. I think a lot of companies, there are very few companies that are actually in that digitally mature space in terms of artificial intelligence solutions and machine learning. It's something that's come about fairly recently within industry, and a lot of organizations and companies are investigating playing in that space and investigating how that technology can enhance and improve what they do within their organizations. So thank you to everybody that voted. That's interesting, and I think the answers and the responses were as expected and very interesting. So moving on to the next slide, we're going to talk about how, very briefly, about how we can digitize our supply chain management. So at the beginning of this review, we kind of talked about there's probably two options and two ways to go. It's either you buy something off the shelf, or effectively you build your own software in-house, and there's typically no right or wrong way to do it. However, there are watch points and there are things to look out for if we do decide to go down either one of these routes. And one thing to bear in mind is that if we go for the buy option, so you identify a software that will seamlessly integrate with your existing system, the chances of getting a ready-made solution that's customized to your business is fairly low. So there will be an element of customization. There will be an element of requiring some level of integration or plugins, so that the software in itself can work quite adequately for your organization. When it comes to building the software, The main challenge that we see with building the software is capacity. You're going to require somebody in-house to do this, and while they're building that software, they're not doing something else for the business, except you go out and you hire dedicated staff to carry that out for you. But then that becomes not cost effective for the business. So one of the things that one of the options that's out there is if we go down the build, if you go down the build option, you do so in terms of finding an IT outsourcing partner. It doesn't require you to recruit somebody, and it allows your existing team to focus on everyday operations running smoothly. But then you have a dedicated resource or partner that can help you build and customize that software to your requirements. Now, some of the things that we'll just highlight in terms of when you're selecting that IT outsourcing partner, just some of the qualities to look for within a partner. So ensure that there is a level of business continuity and strength as with that partner. There are a lot of startup companies out there that offer IT-based solutions that haven't sort of weathered the storm of the pandemic, and it's always very challenging to be able to find the right partner that fits with your business. And again, finding somebody that's consistent, has a proven track record, and also feels like a partner and an extension to your business, as opposed to somebody that doesn't really understand your business or wants to take the time to understand your business. We also say that you have the right service level agreements in place. And these service level agreements have to have a highly positive impact on your business. While you negotiate these SLAs, you'll want to see them reflect increased visibility, high accuracy rates, robust and reliable data protection, impressive processing speeds and service hours, and cost containment pricing as well. Because one of the things you don't want to do is have a budget and then all of a sudden you're told partway through the implementation that the budget's been exceeded for the implementation of the system. So you want to manage, and you want to manage that closely, and you want to monitor it closely as well. So strategic application of smart technology to streamline your clients' processes. So again, it should go without saying that your IT development partner, they should be well versed in the right technology and solutions. So again, they need to have the experience and a track record of having implemented this sort of software to bring into your business somewhere else, and the success of that business. And they should also be right up there in terms of innovation. As we know with technology tends to become obsolete very, very quickly. So you need to work with a partner that can move with the times, and can move with that innovation, and they can continually develop your systems, your databases, and whatever programming needs you may need ultimately. And then last but not the least, an experienced team is required that's dedicated to your success. One of the things we recommend, again, is not a hard and fast rule, is that you have a partner that has at least 10 years of experience within industry. Again, that's just something that we recommend. Ultimately, you have to find somebody that you know will look out for your business and will treat your business as their own. Okay, I'll pass on back to Luca again, so Luca can take you through the final slide of the presentation.
So, and this is about like some of the challenges that stay in front of the digitalization, like within the supply chain. One I think is very important is the quality and quantity of the data. Quality in the sense like that sometimes it's not easy to get the right type of information. So for instance, in our conversation with customers, again, we find that many of them, they may have, like, for instance, the corporate addresses of their suppliers, but they don't know actually what the actually physical locations are, for instance, for storage and manufacturing. So it becomes difficult, for instance, to discover whether there are unknown suppliers of hidden risk concentration. And on the other hand, like perhaps there is there's a balance to strike because of course, like if we don't want to miss important information, but again also like it's important like to filter what is trivial information and information we don't need. For instance, if there is like an alert system, again it's important that only those information that are relevant to the organization are received. And another one is the time lag. So before the information is collected, so how long will it take before it will reach the practitioners, will be in acceptable time frames for taking the actions that are required. And security and confidentiality, of course, like this is quite a big area of cybersecurity. I think we like with cloud technology, I think it's considered relatively safe in the sense that there are already very sensitive information such as credit card information stored in there. But of course, there is the issue also of having confidence within the partner within the supply chain if you're trying to integrate them in a collaborative approach. Talent gaps, I think, is going to be one of the major challenges because there is a big talent gap, as you know, both in the logistic industry, but also like in terms of having data analytics and digital tools capability. And the other one is data integration. So again, so how easy is going to be like to integrate different data through different systems within the supply chain with your supply chain partners. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think.
Thanks, Luca. Thanks, Namdi, for that. That was really interesting. I just wondering, we have got a short time left for questions. If anyone has any questions, so you can either do that by using the raise hand function, or you can put some questions in the chat. While people are maybe thinking about questions, just kind of some of the things I took away from that as a non-expert. I suppose I think Luca used an interesting phrase, the overabundance of data. And it's not necessarily that organizations don't have data, but it's the challenge is the ability to analyze and make decisions quickly using that data. And I guess I also got the impression that maybe there's a temptation for shiny new tools, to help us alert us to events or new systems, but actually what's maybe needed is a kind of more strategic, what challenges do we need to address as an organization in terms of our supply chain? Where are the opportunities, and how do we take people with us on that kind of cultural journey? So rather than just implement tools and systems, actually we need to be able to educate people within our organization as to the tools that are needed. So some kind of really interesting messages, I thought. Just in terms of quick question for me then, if we can. We talked about some of the drivers for supply chain automation. I'm just wondering if you could expand on the role customers play in driving increased automation. Is this a kind of, we're having to do this to meet our customers' needs, or is it, are we being forced to do this? I don't know if you get any views on that, Namdi. I'll come to you.
I think I think it works both ways. I think ultimately, what a lot of businesses a lot of organizations are in business to satisfy a customer requirements, and ultimately they're there to make profit as well. So I think digitization drives and supports those two aspects. The first aspect being as I talked in my presentation, the enhancement of cash flow and the improvement in the cost base and the operational efficiency. All that ultimately drives towards providing a good customer experience and improved customer experience. And I think as a customer, if I have visibility and I have access to my suppliers supply chain through digitization, it gives me a level of confidence that they know what they're doing and there's a lot of transparency and they're doing the right thing. So ultimately, I think it does drive towards those 2 points that you highlighted, Alan. So customer satisfaction as well as profitability for the organization is setting it up.
Okay. Thanks, Nnamdi. In the interest of time, we're almost at 12, so I'll bring it to a close. But I just wanted to thank both of you for presenting on this topic. Thanks to those of you who participated. And just as a reminder, this is one of a series of webinars that we're running on different supply chain topics. So we'll send details in the follow-up of how you can register for some of these other sessions if you haven't already. We'll also send you a copy of the slides that were used in the presentation today so that you've got those for your records. Other than that, thank you for your engagement today. Thanks for participating. If you do want to get in contact with us, you can use the email address on the screen there, or please connect with Luca and Nnamdi, who are both on LinkedIn. So be very happy, I'm sure, to engage with you there too. So thank you.